Shall we get going? Yes. Awesome. Great. Welcome. Good afternoon, everybody. How is everyone doing today? Great. Good. Awesome. Awesome. Anything else? Tired? Food coma? Sleepy? Settling?
All of those.
All of those? All of the above? Great, great, great. All right. I have a good voice projection, I believe, so I'm hoping that my voice will not make you more sleepy. And I walk around a lot and I come close to you, so maybe you need to be alert. If I see you sleeping, I'll just come and wake you up. All right. So today I am going to share my passion, a very great subject that is so deep to my heart, which is pair testing. My name is Pradeepa Narayanaswamy, and the reason why I wanted to share my passion with all of you is, as more and more organizations and teams are moving or transforming in their agile way, they're going towards being more agile, I've seen a lot of teams are looking for new ideas, new ways to practice. So this is one idea that I've pioneered in the past, and I really liked it. I've seen tremendous success with it, and I wanted to share that passion with all of you today. So a little bit about me. Professional side, I have about 50, especially if you're a software development team, I wanted to mention that you're expected to produce high quality software, right? And why are we producing that? Because you wanted to change the world by focusing on the outcome, right? You are not producing a software because somebody is asking you to, or you got a bunch of requirements. Because the bigger picture here is you wanted to change the world. You wanted to change the person, your customers, their experience, their impact on using the software, right? So that's the reason there. And the most important part is the software that you are producing, the quality, the high quality of the software is the responsibility of the entire Agile team, right? Everybody in the Agile team has an equal stake in the quality of the product. We will also call it everybody has a skin in the game, right? So everybody has an equal stake in the product. That is very, very important. Okay, so these are my expectations. How can we support that? If we expect a group of people, a team, to produce software day after day, week after week, or if you're using a model or framework like Scrum, your sprint after sprint, you need all the necessary skill sets to do the work, right? That is a fair expectation, isn't it? That is also called as cross-functional teams. So newer teams starts with a bunch of people who may have individual skill sets, and that's perfectly fine. Okay, we have cross-functional team. Will that be enough? I don't think so. The team members need to know how to work with each other, right? You are expected to produce high-quality work on such short time boxes, sometimes even day after day. You need to know how to interact with each other, how to look for help, how to ask for help. If somebody is facing a challenge, how can you help that person? How can you help them remove an impediment? All those comes into picture there. So I would use the word collaboration between team members is very critical for an Agile teams. You definitely need to have that. And as teams are moving in their journey, as they are employing, as they're trying to go to the next level, they will start looking for ideas. They will start looking for good practices, some continuous improvement that they wanted to make in the team, right? So that's where they will start employing good practices. I'll share some good practices which you may be familiar with. TDD, test-driven development. How many of you are familiar with that concept? Okay, fair number. So writing a test, a failing test, before even writing a single piece of logic, right? That is an awesome way to think about the quality right from the beginning. Behavior-driven development. As a team, you're talking about the user behavior, right? You're talking about the user behavior. BDD is not about tools. Tool industry kind of exploited that. But behavior-driven development is more about the teams coming together, team members coming together and talking about the user behavior. That's a good practice. That's a great practice, I would say. Swarming, 2 or more people coming together with the intention of solving a problem for the team. Pair programming, so on and so forth, right? There are plenty of techniques and practices out there that the team members will start trying to adopt for their team as they're maturing in the journey. So let me introduce you to one more of good practices, pair testing. So what is pair testing? So as you can see from the picture, when a pink color brain and a green color brain intercept their signals, something magical happens. What is that? Just kidding. That's just the picture that I found for 2 brains. So now on a serious note, pair testing is when 2 brains thinking, sharing ideas, and actively testing together instead of just one person. I'll repeat that again. Pair testing is when 2 brains thinking, sharing ideas, and actively testing instead of just one person. That's pretty much it. That's it. So you may have a question for me, Pradeepa. There are all these good techniques out there. Why this? Why do we need one more? Why pair testing? So here are my answers. These are the reasons why this technique is being more irresistible for me personally. If 2 people are sitting together with the intention of assessing the quality of the application or the software that they are working on, the product, what are you doing? You are actually baking the quality right from the beginning. You're thinking about the quality right from the beginning through testing. Faster feedback is golden for agile teams. This is a direct quote from one of the team members I coached a while ago. It is that important. When 2 team members are sitting together, assessing, meaning testing the application, what are they doing there? They're actually giving feedback for the development that is happening. Do you agree? Pardon me?
Since we are discussing why pair testing, but actually we don't know what pair testing is. Actually, I don't know.
Okay.
So I was thinking if you could go to what is pair testing before we go into the why pair testing, it's easier for us, at least for me to understand.
Okay. So I just talked about this, right? What is pair testing?
So are they sitting on the same system? Are they sitting with each other? Are they sitting that you are independently executing something, I'm independently executing something, and then we're discussing?
We'll get back to that. We'll talk about all those things, so please bear with me. All right, so as far as the feedback goes, I always tell this. Testing is not about finding bugs in an agile team. Testing is about giving faster feedback for the development that is happening. So you can think about the quality and you are reacting to it as soon as possible, as much as possible, immediately. That's why the faster feedback is very critical here. And and the third point here is, again, when 2 people are sitting together and working, it basically encourages collaboration between team members, right? Those 2 people get to work together. They may get to know each other, and that really helps in actually encouraging and driving the collaboration between those 2 people. And when I've done this personally, I've always made it fun. It's not just a serious game. I've always made it fun, pair testing session. Towards the end of the presentation, I will share some of the techniques that I've used. Maybe you can form your own techniques on how you wanted to make it fun, but I will show some techniques why it is fun. All right? And more importantly, when, again, two people are working together, testing, in my experience, it has definitely enhanced the creativity, the creative brains. I'll share a personal example that happened to me. Dan Laughlin, so he's one of the coding specialists, and I was acting as a testing specialist in that team, and we were working on a touchscreen application. And there was a major redesign that was happening for the touchscreen application, and the application was on a big paint dispensing machine that was used for printing shops. So it basically measures painting, and it gives paint out. So that's the application, and it was internationally supported. So we were working on supporting multiple languages as well. So the first time when we implemented the multiple language support, after the coding was completed, Dan and I were sitting, and this was the day 1 or day 2 or something like that. We were talking about doing pair testing. So we sat together, and that was the first time we were actually looking at the application from the testing side of things. And our conversation, we were just discussing scenarios. How do we want it to go about testing? And there was a drop-down box, and we clicked, like the different language settings like French, Spanish, German, and looking at how the screen changes and is it everything looking good. Very soon, within 2 to 3 minutes, our conversation went from what is happening in the front to what is happening in the back. Hey, when I choose a language setting, a different language setting, what is happening in the back, Dan? So he replied to me, Pradeepa, when you select a language, there is a configuration file that gets generated in the back. Ah, okay, interesting. Can we get to that? Or do you think the user for this application, user for this system, will they be able to get to that? He said, no, it's not possible. But since I've coded it, I know where exactly it gets dropped. So I know where exactly. Okay, fine. Can we go and take a look at it? Sure. Okay, so we went there. We went and took a look at the config file. And our immediate curiosity next was, what can we do to this file now? It gets generated. Hey, can we corrupt this file? Or can we even delete this file and see what happens? Okay, so we tried it. We corrupted it, actually, and tried to save the file. What happened? Boom, the application crashed right in front of our eyes. We both felt like creative geniuses at that time. I'm serious. It was awesome. The feeling was really amazing. Could we have done this by ourselves? Found this scenario by ourselves? Of course. But that's not the point here. We were able to get to that scenario just by having that active conversation, and it was much more sooner. And we were able to give that feedback immediately. We were able to take action on that feedback immediately. That was the cool part there. That's why I thought that, oh my God, just by having this conversation, talking, together and, on top of each other and things like that, we were able to get to that very, very soon. So that's the creativity part. And last but not the least, we've been talking about learning quite a bit in this conference. I've been hearing all the speakers encouraging and talking a lot about learning, because learning is an imminent part of this culture, of this industry. It's very important. And again, when you and I are working together, I tend to learn something from you. And same goes the other way too. She tends to learn something from me as well, right? So that becomes a natural thing for people. So of course, learning comes naturally. One thing that I typically encourage is when somebody who is new to domain joins your team, I would encourage them to pair up with somebody who is a little bit more seasoned in domain and have them pair test the application. A great way to learn the domain, and since you have a new, fresh set of eyes looking at the application, you may be finding something that you haven't even thought about it, right? So you get the added advantage of learning from each other. All right, so we talked about what is pair testing. We talked about why. Let's talk about how. That's pretty much to it. That the picture says it all. That's pretty much it. Two people sitting together. You don't need to have a monitor in front of you. No, that's the picture closer to this I could snag from the internet. You don't have to have a monitor. It's the two people sitting together having that active discussion. There is going to be a doer. There is going to be a watcher, right? There one person who actually drives it and one person actually watches it. And of course, very similar to pair programming, I would recommend time boxing it between two people and switch roles. You know, if one person acts as a doer, after 15 minutes or so, switch roles, depending upon what time box you choose, right? What is going to happen? Active conversation, active discussion on scenarios. I would always encourage when you go for a pair testing session to have a goal in mind. Don't just go blindly, right? Have a goal in mind, have an agenda in mind between the pairs. You know, you decide what you wanted to test and come a little bit prepared for the session. Don't prepare too much. That's my advice to you, or my suggestion to you. Come prepared, but not too much. Why? So if, what is your name? Vaishali. If Vaishali and I are going for a pair testing session, and if I come up with like 1,000 scenarios before my pair testing session, what do you think Vaishali will think? Pradeepa has 1,000 scenarios. I don't have to think for myself. I'm sure she has it all covered, right? That's not the intention here. Come prepared. Know what your agenda is, but let it be organic too. The major idea here is the active discussion, right? So keep that in back of your mind. So let me stop talking. Let's do an activity right now, okay? So the first activity is going to be individual. I'm really hoping that you all have a pen and a paper to write. Does everybody has pen and paper? I'm sure there are pencils I've seen. Anybody needs a paper or pen? Please raise your hand. Okay, so the first one, let me move and show it to you. The rules of the game. So there are two stories in the board. I'm going to tell. Okay, so every time when I do this, most of the time people pick the first one and they ignore the second one. So what I'm going to do is, this side of the room, you're going to do story 1. This side of the room, you're going to do story 2, okay? So because I wanted to hear a lot of... Okay, so you have to do pair reading, it seems. Awesome. So let's move on. I'm quickly going to talk about various pair testing options and opportunities. Some of these techniques, some of these pairs you may already be doing or seeing in your organization, and some of them may be a little bit unique. So the first one that I have here is the pairing between a coding and a testing specialist. How many of you already do this today? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's nice. Awesome. Very, very cool. So I'll give 2 ideas. You may be doing this or you may not be, but these are my 2 favorite ideas that when I'm acting as a testing specialist, I would like to do this with the coding specialist. Number 1, unit testing. How many of you pair up on unit testing among the hands that rose? All right, nobody. That's one of my favorite. People will ask me, hey, I may not be that technical. How can I pair up with my coder on writing unit tests? You don't have to be. That's my answer. Because if you are following good standard practices on writing unit tests, the unit test name should go like this, right? What is your input? What are you trying to do? And what are you expecting as an output in simple English? If I put it in words, 2 plus 3, when I add 2 plus input 2 plus 2 and 3, when I add, I get 5. That's your name. My name is not pretty, but you get the gist of it, right, what I'm saying. If that is your unit test name, and you don't have to worry about what's written in the code, even if you're non-technical, even if you don't understand .NET or Java or whatever technology, that simple line, that simple test name itself is enough to have that conversation, right? Hey, what about -2 and -3? What about 0 and 0? What about 0 and 1 lakh? Whatever, right? I mean, that itself is enough for having that conversation. Testers are really, really good in coming up with scenarios. Do you guys agree? They are really good in coming up with scenarios. So utilize that skill set and have that conversation. So what you're going to end up is really good set of unit, really quality, good set of unit tests. That's the intention there. So that's number one idea. Number two I have is automation. Coders love writing code, right? And automation is code. So utilize their expertise in coding and pair up on automating. You may learn from each other, right? If you are aspiring to be an automation engineer, or if you wanted to fine-tune your skills, or if you wanted to look for additional ways to code, to do automation, pairing up is a great way to increase your number of test cases in your automation suite, as well as a great learning opportunity, right? So those two are my ideas. The next one I have here is a pairing between a testing and another testing specialist. Elizabeth Keogh calls testers as evil, evil people. She's from Ireland, so she uses the Irish accent there. I cannot do that. Testers use their evil powers, or they're evil geniuses, for the greater goodness of the quality, right? They use their evil powers to test the quality of the product. Agreed? Right? So when these two evil geniuses pair up, a lot of great things are bound to happen. I mean, the possibilities are endless here. You can pair up on any number of things, right? Functional, non-functional, exploratory, automation, performance, anything that you can think of, right? Whatever makes sense for a specific situation, you can pair up on those things. Again, I would also recommend, if you have a senior seasoned testing specialist in your team, have them pair up with a junior testing specialist in your team. They can learn from each other, right? That's a great way to learn from one another. And also, if it's a great way to learn the domain, great way to learn new techniques, right? Sharing ideas, experimenting on different things. Pair up with your product owner. If you are in an agile team, I'm hoping that you all have a product owner for your specific team. So if you get an opportunity, this can be anybody in your agile team, right? That's why I'm not saying pair up, I'm not saying developer or tester here. If you get an opportunity, pair up with your product owner. Your product owner understands the product, they understands the vision, they understands the market, they understands the competition, they know where they wanted to take this product next, right? So their perspective on the product, on the software that you're working, will be very different than a team member. You may be somewhat technical, right? So their view of the product will be very outward. So if you get to pair up with them and do pair testing, the scenarios, the options and opportunities that you're going to be talking about, I've done this, they're going to be very different than how you are getting to it, right? So their thoughts are going to be very, very different there. So if you get an opportunity, I would suggest and I would recommend you pair up with your product owner. This should be an easy, I'm hoping this should be an easy thing to do. Sorry, so there's no music there. All right. Okay, so there's supposed to be a music there because this is like a happy thing here. Pair up with your DevOps. How many of you are familiar with Etsy, the company called Etsy? Nobody. Okay, so Etsy is an online art and craft store. If you are an artist, if you do crafts and things like that, you can go to that website and you can actually sell it. It's a very popular online arts and crafts store. Whoever works for Etsy, the first thing, doesn't matter what they are in for the job, doesn't matter. The first thing that they will learn in their job is to actually do deployment to production, irrespective of what they work on. Doesn't matter whether they are in finance, they are in IT, they are in business, anything, marketing. The first thing that they learn is to how put stuff into production. It is that important, right? We have been talking about continuously deploying to production so you can get the value to your customers sooner. so you can learn from what your customers are asking for, right? That feedback cycle is going to be much more sooner. So until our companies become Etsy, we still have some gap, right, between where we are today and where we want it to go, and we have the software and we need to put it into production. So DevOps is a movement. To me, DevOps is not a separate group of people, right? Again, then we are cultivating the throw it over the wall kind of behavior there. To me, they are an extension of an agile team. They are an entity as well, right? So consider, how do you want to bridge that gap? How do you want to bring that gap closer together? My idea is figure out a way to pair up with them. It'll be a great opportunity if you're able to pair up with them. What are some of the things you can do? Release level testing, right? If you're putting it into production, they will be doing quick sanity level tests, right? Figure out what are some of the things that you wanted to test during release, and even bring it to your team level, so you're well prepared, right? Those are some things you can do. Another idea is testing in production. If your organization actively tests in production, this is a great opportunity to pair up with DevOps and actually test in production. You can actually learn from each other, right? And there are plenty more. But think about whether this is feasible for you, because you are trying to bridge that gap, the extension of development and operations. Yes? Yeah. Oh, that's why I put a picture there holding hands, right? They're trying to be closer together. But I've seen many places where they're trying to consider themselves as a separate entity. Yes, I totally agree. I totally agree. Maybe your organization is set up that way. That's an amazing thing to do. What I don't want it to see is a wall between the Agile teams and the DevOps movement, right? We want to break that wall, and how we want it to get closer together. Because they're just an extension. I totally agree with you on that.
Wherever that division is there between these two teams, right? Wherever we're seeing that. So what is the function of Agile team over there? They are doing what are they doing there? If DevOps team is not part of Agile team.
So when I meant by Agile team here, I'm mostly looking at the development team. So the people who product owner, Scrum Master, and the people who are actually doing the work. So producing the software. So that's what I meant by the Agile team here.
And the other thing, I think DevOps is generally it's not considered as a thing, it's more of a culture.
Yes. Yes. So that's why I'm calling them as an entity. It's an extension, right? It's basically a mindset. To me, DevOps is also a mindset. And how do you want it to bridge that?
One part of it, I would say.
Yeah.
We are having a similar concept called as Scrum Ops.
Uh-huh.
So the DevOps team member will be a part of this Scrum team.
Yeah.
And then the advantage what we got is, previously we were giving them the release notes, and if you miss something, then you have to go back. Now these guys are from the day one in the team, so we understand the functionality.
Excellent. Love it, love it, love it. So I don't know whether you guys heard that. So in his organization, there is a DevOps, there is an operations representation inside the Scrum team. That's where we wanted to get to, right? Not every company is like that today, but that's a great place to be. That's learning from each other and getting that feedback very quickly. Yes?
Would this pair testing, would it not increase the cost of the project when you have developer and the tester, the spending time on the same activity for
Hang on to that question. We'll get back to that a little bit, in the next section. I need to move on. So any questions you have, reserve it. If I'm able to get to that by the end of the presentation, I will. Otherwise, I don't want to get bogged down with questions right now, all right? So the next one I have here is operations. To me, operations are the people who actually go to the client site, do product installations, data setup, data configurations, and things like that. They take the product, go do setups like that. Those are the operations people, at least in my opinion. And if you get an opportunity, you may or may not have operations team like this in your organization, but if you get an opportunity, I would definitely recommend you pair up with them. I'll share a personal experience of mine at one of the teams that I was part of. We had a team member in my team who was able to tag along with our operations guy who went and did product installation. So the guy, he went, and his idea is to take some notes on what's happening, and he came back and he gave us his report. So when he came back to us, the first thing that he told us, the team, is, I feel really bad for our operations teams. We asked why. Because they have to go through this 5-page, 100-item checklist that they have to do, that they have to follow to get the product installed in each and every customer site. And the pathetic part is they have to do it all manually, step by step. What I have noted down is there are a lot of steps that can be easily automated, and that's something that we as a team can do. So why don't we take it and go to our product owner and ask her opinion on that, and see whether we can make our operations team's lives easier. For some magical reason, we were able to sell that concept to our product owner. Few items got into our backlog. It got prioritized. We were able to automate some of the steps, not all the 100 steps that I'm talking about. At least we were able to do 15 or 16 steps. That made the operations team's lives a lot easier. And the first time in the company's history, the operations team took our team to lunch. They never did anything like that. They were really jumping up and down. That was a true story, and I was part of it. That's why I was able to, see how much it made a difference. It was only because that person went and paired up and was able to observe what was happening in the client side. So the next one is pairing up with sales and marketing. If you attended Ivan's talk yesterday, Ivan was talking about embedding a sales team member into the Agile team. He talked about that quite a bit. I was pretty impressed with that. And again, that is a goal for a lot of companies in the future. But until then, until we get there, this is something that we can try and do, right? The sales and the marketing team, is there a way that we can pair up with them? Because they look at the application in a totally different way, right? They meet with the customers. They interact with the customer. They sell the product that you are developing, right? What are some of the things that they are hearing from the customers, right? Raw data. And when they hear those raw data, when they're trying to market the product, what are some of the reactions from the customer? They can use that raw data and help you with testing the application in a totally different perspective. Again, see, all these pairs that I'm talking about will give you different perspectives. That's the important part here. And this may not all happen for you. This may not all be possible. But see whether you can tap into some of these. Next one, stakeholder. Stakeholders can be anybody, right? I've used the general term here. So stakeholder for the product. Pair up with them. Again, they understand the product, right? Again, they have a very different perspective of what the product is all about, what the users are doing, things like that. And their domain knowledge is going to be pretty indispensable for teams. So figure out a way, if you get an opportunity, pair up with your stakeholders. Very quick story. One of the Agile team that I was coaching, the first sprint review, they were using Scrum framework. The first sprint review, that everybody was curious, they didn't know what to expect out of a sprint review meeting. So all the stakeholders were sitting, they were curiously looking at. Fortunately, the team had one item that they can show to the stakeholders. Very happy, everybody was very happy, because in the history of that company, they have never seen stuff delivered in 2 weeks. It was a 2-week sprint cycle. So everything went well for that specific team. Everybody went back. The next day, one of the stakeholder who was sitting in the audience, she came to the team room next day, and she actually told them, hey guys, you know what? I've been working in this company for about 27 years, and I've never seen delivered this quickly in 2 weeks. This is awesome. And you know what? I have some time with me right now. Can I be part of your team? I have a lot of domain knowledge. I really understand this application well, and I really know what our customers are. Maybe, is that something, would it be useful for you? The team member said, yeah, of course, sure. And rest is history. She became part of the team. And what happened there was, she's from the business side, so she was able to appreciate the technical side of things, and vice versa as well. The team members were able to appreciate and learn quite a bit of domain from her. And I'm not saying that everyone in this room will be able to go and grab a stakeholder and make part of your team. That's not going to happen. But you can figure out a way to, time box and partner with them and pair up with them so that you can test the application through their eyes to get a different perspective. See whether you're able to do this. So the last one that I have here, I will end up with the story, is pairing up with a user experience. So remember the touchscreen application that I was talking about a while ago? So there was a user experience specialist in the team. I had a great opportunity to pair up with him, and I was able to tag along with him when we went to a user site visit. We just wanted to go and observe the actual user in action on how they are using the application. So this person, he was showing the application. The paint dispensing machine was like this tall, and there was a big touch screen on it. So the person who was showing the application, he was a little bit shorter, and he was trying to touch the screen and show us the application on how it's working and things like that. Our responsibility, Steve was my UX partner, so we both went there. We took notes, and at the end of the session, we were comparing notes. All my notes were very, very obvious ones. When we touched the screen didn't work properly, or things like that, very obvious bugs that I was able to notice. But when Steve started talking, the first thing that he told me is, Pradeepa, did you notice that when Greg was the guy who was showing us the application, when Greg was touching the screen multiple times, the screen was actually shaking. It was going really, it was shaking like anything. Yeah, I think so, but I wasn't paying too much attention to that, so I kind of pretended. So he told me that, you know what, when Greg touched the application, he was standing like this, and the app was like on top of this. He was using his fingers like this. I don't know whether everybody can see it. So before the tip of the finger touches the screen, his knuckles were touching it. So it was a double click. And this application is not able to support that double click at that time. So it was going crazy. And he called it knuckle test. That's the name that we gave it, actually. I always have tremendous respect for our UX specialists, but after this incident, it grew like 1,000 times more. Because that was a totally different perspective I would never imagine to look for. So think about the possibilities when you pair up with all these different specialties that you can get, right? So again, get creative. I haven't covered there's a ton of possibilities here, right? There are a lot of permutations and combinations. I didn't cover each and every one of them. Get creative. These may work for you. This may not totally work for you. You may come up with a totally different idea. Figure out what works for you. Get creative. Again, the options and opportunities are endless.